Hello and welcome. This is Dennis Westman, your instructor, and today we're going to talk a little bit about the second unit in Excel, which is Excel Unit B. So as with we've done in the previous videos, please take out your textbook and look at Excel Unit B, which begins on page Excel 25, and this section deals with working with functions and formulas. Now look at page 26 and let's talk a little bit about what a complex formula is. It's defined at the top of page 26, and it's a formula that uses more than one arithmetic operator, which means it uses a plus and a minus, or division and multiplication, or a plus and division, and so on. So it's using more than one type of operator. And these are considered more complex formulas. And on page 26, it talks a little bit about creating these more complex formulas. Also pay very close attention to the bottom of page 26, which talks about the order of precedence, meaning what items are calculated first and whenever you're creating Excel formulas. Now looking at page Excel 28, this talks a little bit about functions, and functions are predefined formulas that enable you to perform complex calculations pretty easily, almost automatically. And again, that specific definition is on the top of page 28. And functions are, they come in a variety of formats. But again, essentially a function is something that allows you to create a formula, but in a much more automatic fashion. And then when you're typing a function on page 30, talks a little bit about how you can type in the first letter, and the formulas or functions that start with those with that first letter will come up and allow you to pick from the two. So it's kind of a nice little feature there. You can also copy and move formulas and functions. This is talked about on page Excel 32. A great way to move formulas around or copy formulas so you don't have to type them over and over and over again. Now let's look at page Excel 34. This is extremely important, not only for this class and this unit, but also for the exam. Understanding relative versus absolute cell references. Again, look on page 34 and let's talk a little bit about this. If you want to reuse formulas, for instance, you want to copy them to additional cells, and you want the formulas to maintain their reference. For instance, you want it to specifically stay connected to cell A4 or B7. Then you have to do something in order to keep it in that same column and or that same row. Because if you don't, then whenever you copy it, that newly copied formula will reference a new area of Excel. And that's called a relative cell address or a relative reference. Meaning when you copy it from one place to another place, it changes the formula relative to where it's copied. Sometimes you don't want that, sometimes you do. If you don't want that, you have to use something called an absolute reference, an absolute cell reference. What happens is when you copy it from here over to here, it still maintains the reference from the original place that you copied it. So that is an absolute cell reference. So relative means when you copy it from here to here, the formula changes relative to where it's copied. For an absolute cell reference, when you copy it from here to here, the formula doesn't change. It still maintains the original cell references of the original formula. So absolute, it absolutely does not change. Relative changes relative to how you're copying it. Look over page 34 in Excel because that'll definitely be something that will come up later on. Page 36 talks about copying formulas with relative cell references. We've kind of already talked about that. And then page 38 talks about copying formulas with absolute cell references. Again, something that we just talked about, but this explains it in much more detail. Page 40 talks about rounding values in a function, and that ends the chapter. As I mentioned before, If you really want to get a handle on Excel, and I would encourage you to do this, make sure you work through the chapter and don't just start with the end of chapter activities, because these can be very helpful for you as you work through the homework assignments. And so when you ask for help, I'm going to ask you whether or not you worked through the chapter and ask to see that you worked through those so I can check your work. So I would encourage you to work through those first before trying to work on the end of chapter activities. As always, if you have any questions or need assistance, feel free to post it to the discussion board or send me an email at my dwestman@mscok.edu email address. Thank you and have a great day.